Hey, what's up, you huge noobs? So you decided it's finally time to start trying the Inferno? Hell yeah, I support you. Welcome to my guide on the Inferno. To start off, this guide is only for first time Inferno capes, and this is only for noobs. No tactic in this guide is going to use high level skill, and I will never require insane off-ticking and prayer flicking and tip manipulating. I don't know any of that. All I'm going to tell you is the simplest, most newbie way of how even noobs can get the Inferno cape. That's what I want to see. I want to see literal noobs getting Inferno cape inspired by this video. The requirements are that you're confident with many other types of PVM such as Armadyl, God Wars maybe, but specifically raids will definitely help you learn the mechanics of what I'm going to tell you here and complete the Inferno using that. You're going to need the ability to learn quick from your mistakes, and I'm going to recommend you have a hell of a lot of determination, because I had to sacrifice my sanity to get this cape, and you're probably going to have to do so yourself, and you're going to have to be patient with that and understand that this is no easy challenge, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible. All that said, I honestly believe Inferno is definitely possible to get for everyone trying to attempt it, and it's not as hard as people make it out to be. I'm doing this guide to prove that less skilled players can still get capes, because I've done it myself. I'm going to recommend you have the best gear possible because it only increases your chances of success, but I'm not going to say that you need the most expensive gear. You easily can complete the Inferno with much less expensive gear, but for the sake of the time in this guide, I'm not going to go over gear that much. I'm only going to tell you what worked for me. What worked for me for gear is having a Justicar helmet, 99 Rage cape. If you don't have this, you can go with Ava Assembler. I used a Fury, I used Dragon Arrows, I used a Kodai on Ice Barrage at all times. Unless I was healing, I would switch it to Blood Barrage. Ancestral Road Top, an Ellie, or I used a Crystal Shield, Armadyl Legs, Barrows Gloves, Pegasian Boots, and the Ring of Suffering E. This was always what I went into the cave with, what I would mage with starting off. My inventory had the Armadyl Chest, a Blowpipe on Rune Darts, and once I started going to Triple Jad, I put Dragon Darts in there. A Twisted Bow, you could bring an Armadyl Crossbow if you don't have this. A Justicar Chest Guard, Justicar Legs, Ceradoman Godsword, Rune Pouch with Blood, Death, and Soul Runes inside of it. 9 Brews, I had 8 when I actually completed the Inferno, but I would definitely recommend 9 when you started. 1 Stamina Potion, 1 Bastion Potion for range, and the remainder Super Restores. This should be plenty to get you to the final boss, but do not hesitate when you're learning the Inferno to use as many brews as possible just to get as far as you can until you learn how to be better efficient with your resources. I also recommend obviously pre-potting with 1 brew, 1 restore, 1 range, and then 1 stamina in that order when you go into the cave. The first thing you'll need to learn about the Inferno is what each of the minions do. The first minion that appears is the Bat Minion. The range is very short and it attacks with range style. It is a threat because it drains run energy and combat stacks every time it attacks you. This causes an issue using Ice Barrage and Blood Barrage. If you are lowered before 94 magic, you will need to re-autocast Ice Barrage in your Kodai. That becomes an issue if you're not 99, but even if you are 99, you still could potentially be lowered past 94 if you're not paying attention. And if this happens, you will instead run and melee the Nibblers, which is not good, and you'll have to either restore to regain this or use a different style of attack such as range to kill the Nibblers. The Blowpipe is 1 tile longer for range than the Bat's range is, so you can use this to your advantage. It's important to know though, if you are 1 square out of the Blowpipe range, you will run 2 squares forward past the range that you would have normally attack. This puts you in range of the Bat, so it's important that when you attack the Bat, you are within the range of the Blowpipe, which will be out of the range of the Bat itself, and you should be fine. You don't need to pray against the Bats if you do this method, but if for example you have another ranger or another magic or another minion on you, you will need to be praying that prayer because the Bat won't be attacking you but the other minion will. I recommend right clicking the Bat because of its small hitbox and its max hit is a 19, which can be really highly annoying in the later waves because you will be praying magic in the later waves and you will not be able to protect from the Bat unless you could separate the mage. For the blob, it reads your prayer every 3 ticks and then the next 3 ticks it'll attack you. So the way it works is every 6 tacks, it'll attack you. And 3 ticks before it attacks you, it'll read what prayer you're praying. Say you're praying range, it'll attack you with mage. So you will have to switch your prayer from range to mage in order to protect from its mage attack. You could 1 tick flick the blobs. If you do nothing for the first 2 ticks, then pray range, then you have 2 off ticks, and then you could pray mage, vice versa. But it's important to notice that the first time the blob sees you, there won't be the initial 2 tick delay. It'll immediately read and then go into attack. So it's a little bit quicker. If you want to see how this works, you can just isolate the blob behind a pillar, quick go out, and then let it see you and then run behind a pillar and it'll attack you. So it's also important to know that blobs will be the last minion to attack you because they have very long range, and when they read, they will guaranteed attack you afterwards. So even if you are behind a pillar, they will still attack you through that pillar because when they saw you or when they read your prayers, when they decide to attack. These have 40 HP and they'll die into 3 mini blobs with all 3 aspects of the combat trial when they die. Your goal is to blood barrage all 3 of these minions at once, and you want to pray against the bigger threat, which may be another minion. Your goal is really you want the blood barrage to hit all 3 and not kill the mage, and you want to kill the mage with an SGS spec. SGS spec will raise your HP back up and it'll also raise your prayer back up, so that's a good tactic as well if you're not full health HP. The blobs themselves have very long range, but you could generally always lure them in closer. The specific tactic is if one spawns to the right side, you could still lure it in closer by luring to the back left of the first pillar that you will be spawning on. I'll show that position right now. So you can lure them closer, but you only can range them with either a T-bow or blood barrage, which should be fine to kill them. If you have 2 blobs on you, you could always get the 2 blobs to see you at the same time. That way they're attacking you on the same tick. I never have done any of the crazy prayer ticking flicking god stuff. I'll leave that to the good players, but I'm not good and I'm teaching how to play not good. Then like say a meteor comes, you can most likely still kill the meteor while just tanking the styles of the blobs on the outsides, but we could go through that in further depth later. The max hit of these is 29 and the mini versions can hit 18. For the melee minion, that'll be the next minion you meet. It's the 3rd minion that will spawn, and it is honestly the top threat among the later waves when luring into safe spots. The most annoying aspect of these melee minions is that they can dig, because say 25 seconds into after they can attack you, they will dig to you. So I recommend you, right off the bat, like on the start of the waves when you barrage the nibblers, I would also recommend barraging the melee if it's in a bad spot. That way you could stop it from going towards your lure and maybe isolate it and kill it. There's a bunch of different strategies. I'll go over them more in depth later with some complicated examples. I do recommend you right click the melee because it has a weird hitbox and the way it moves is like quick and twitchy. Just right click it. It'll ensure that you don't move out of like one of the pillar safe spots or one of the corner safe spots. What you want to do is you want to isolate the entire other waves and you want to potentially kill the melees first. So if say a major is isolated and you want a meleeer to dig to you, that way you could just flick melee and kill it. If another dangerous minion is attacking you and you know a meleeer will come to you and you cannot move to another safe spot, you need to kill the dangerous minion that is attacking you first, put on rigor, and just kill it as fast as possible before the melee digs to you. You want to kill the melees with blowpipe, although you can't blood barrage them if you could isolate them and you need HP. You can corner safe spot these, but the important thing to know about corner safe spotting is you need to be back 1 square. The max hit of the melee minion is 49. For the range minion, it'll be the next minion you encounter and is when the Inferno starts to get mildly complicated. You need to prayer tick these 1 tick prayer flicking, maybe 2 tick, but you do need to be prayer flicking the range in order to conserve as much prayer as possible. It's something that you're going to need to get comfortable with, accurately flicking every single minion with the minimum uptime as possible in order to save resources. The range minions can hit a max hit of 46, which does become a problem, but only once the majors start spawning. So right now you shouldn't be too prioritizing how much damage you're taking. You should be more prioritizing in these lower waves how fast you can kill the nibblers and how little resources you can use. The way you could 4-tick the range minion, it looks exactly like if you do raids 1, when you kill guardians with pickaxes, it's the exact same 4-tick time increment. It's 1 tick on and then you put it immediately off. You could have 3 off ticks and go off the animation or sound of when it originally starts lowering its head is when the attack starts. So the last minion that you will see before you get to the Jads is the Mage minion. Heaviest hitting, highest priority minions to kill, but as weird as it seems, you don't want to kill this minion first most of the time. Its max hit is a 70 and you will need to pray Mage against it. It can revive enemies, which is becoming a real pain in the ass. Honestly, the first threat comes from the nibblers and then it'll go to the meleeers. You want to barrage the melee as soon as possible if it's in a bad spot. And then the second priority or the third priority after that would go to whatever you cannot safe spot. And like the Mage is specifically itself is not a priority. It's honestly what's going to deal the most damage to you. I'll go over those examples more later, but the Mage doesn't become a priority because you will always be praying against it. Honestly, with the Mage, the best strategy you could possibly use is to safe spot the mage, and that way you could pray range, which will be the majority of the damage you will take. Because the only other minions that can hit you with mage damage that is not the major is the blobs, which is why the blobs are a nuisance. The mages, you could use T-bow or blowpipe. T-bow does have a longer range and deals significantly more damage, but if you're using crossbow, you're going to kill these things with blowpipe. Your priorities in the Inferno are going to be what ensures your success. Your first priority is going to be the barrage and the middle nibbler. Sometimes you cannot barrage all 3 of the middle nibblers, so you're only going to need to barrage twice. But for the most part, you can usually get all 3 at the same time. If you see that you gained 40 hit points experience, you've killed all 3 of the nibblers. Sometimes it's 39 based on the way the hit points experience rounds up. The second priority is to go to a safe spot. I'm going to talk to safe spots in a later section. There's several different safe spots, but for right now, you're going to need to know after you barrage the middle nibbler, either once or twice, you're going to go immediately to a safe spot. If you're on a higher wave, you're going to want to equip your Justicars if it's after that mage minion has spawned and you're being attacked by a bunch of minions at once. If you're on a lower wave, Justicar doesn't matter as much. Your third priority is going to be to freeze a melee minion if it's what you need. You generally don't need to do this until the very high waves, say when the melee, mage, and range minion are all spawning in, but a decision is going to have to be what you're going to make. If a melee minion spawns to the right of you with no safe spot, and you can't safe spot other dangerous minions such as the rager or major, you're going to want to probably freeze the melee minion in order to get distance from it, and that way you could kill it without taking any damage. If you fail more than 2 attempts though to freeze the melee minion, I recommend you running to a different safe spot, switching pillars, or if the minion or the nibblers are not killed yet, I would just recommend trying to throw another barrage, kill the nibs, and if that fails, you're going to need to switch safe spots or go to another pillar. Your fourth priority is going to be evaluate if you killed all the nibblers. So at this point, if you're in a safe spot, you need to double check are all the nibblers dead. It is really imperative that you kill all the nibblers at the earlier waves immediately, because later on in the waves, the nibblers actually aren't the first priority. It's going to be you staying alive. So if you prioritize killing the nibblers early on, it'll allow you to have the time to kind of leave them alive in the later waves. If the nibblers are not killed, you're going to put back on your ancestral and try barraging the living nibblers again if it is safe. So the easier waves, you're going to prioritize doing this as much as you can. But on the later waves, if it is not safe, you're going to potentially try to kill the most dangerous threat that is preventing you from stepping out to kill the nibblers. And if you cannot do that, you're going to need to reevaluate moving to a different safe spot or pillar in order to get the nibblers down or kill the threat that is preventing you from doing so. Your fifth priority is to evaluate if your safe spot is now optimal. Assuming that you've killed all the nibblers and the melee minion does not need to be safe spotted, you're going to check, are all my other safe spots good? Is this the best spot for me to either segregate a mage and pray range while I kill all the minions, or is everything safe spotted? And if your safe spot is good, you can continue. But if not, before you continue, you're going to want to check in your mind. You're just going to take 30 seconds, 10 seconds to think, is another safe spot better? If another safe spot is potentially better, which I'll go more over safe spots later, if it's an early wave before mage spawns, you're going to want to pray range because the range minion will most likely be attacking you, or pray melee if it's against that's the biggest threat. And you're going to want to pray augury, which boosts your defense, and wear your armadillo and move to that spot. If it's on the later waves, you're going to want to pray mage because the mage minion is always your first priority to pray against. You're going to want to wear your Justicar while praying piety, which boosts your range defense big time. And you're going to move to that safe spot. And then a trick, if the blobs are around, if you're praying mage and you move to the safe spot, the second you know that mage minion can't attack you anymore, just switch your prayer to range and you might prevent yourself getting hit by the blobs as well. Your sixth priority is going to be killing enemies by separating them one by one, or tanking one minion that does less damage while killing the other. You're going to want to use target priority for this. So this is where your experience comes most in handy. I can't tell you exactly every single situation what you're going to do in this video, but for the most part, your melee minion is going to be your first priority of what you can kill easiest. If everything else is safe spotted and you can whittle it down one by one, just let the meleers dig to you. You're going to lessen the amount of enemies that you're going to need to deal with. So then once they're all like in a line behind a pillar or somehow corner safe spotted, you kill the easiest thing that you could possibly kill. But if you have the choice, you're going to want to kill the mage minion first because the mage minion can revive things and you really don't want that happening. If you could kill the mage in such a position that what it's going to revive isn't also going to be a threat, like if you could safe spot what the mage is reviving while still killing the mage, that's what you want to do. Your third target priority is going to be the ranger. He's just after the mage because the range does a lot of damage. And then your fourth priority is going to be tied between the blob and the bat. You generally want to leave them last, but again, if one of them is causing a particular problem, you could usually kill these pretty quick before they become a bigger problem and stuff compiles. There's certain things you're going to want to consider at all times. You're always going to want to keep considering that your HP is over 50 while learning, and your prayer is over 20 at all times. You're going to want to use Blood Barrage and SGS to heal at the end of the wave to regenerate HP and prayer. You could use Blood Barrage against the lower level tier minions and the Ranger, most likely. And SGS spec, you're going to want to save for usually the Blob or the Ranger, but you could use it on really anything. It's just going to take you longer. You're going to want to consider that your Mage is always over level 94, and the bats don't lower it too low. The issue is if your Mage is not 99, you could easily be lowered below 94. And what you need to consider if this happens, the Kodai unequips auto attack, so you will not be auto barraging, and you'll be like punching if you don't catch this. So you always want to make sure your Mage is over 94, and if it does happen to dip below 94, you have to re-auto cast Ice Barrage. You want to make sure your stats are not brewed down too low. I recommend keeping Kodai at all times on Ice Barrage at the beginning of the wave specifically, and then you're going to manually switch it to Blood Barrage on autocast if you're healing. You just need to make sure you always switch back to Ice Barrage at the beginning of the waves. You're going to want to run back and start the wave always in the same spot next to the main pillar. This is the best spot to start that I've learned, because you could safe spot minions from the west at all times, and then if you later switch to the different side of the pillar, you could safe spot all the ones that spawn to the north of you. The right side is the only weakness, but you could again switch spots. You're going to want to always start your wave with the Armadillo legs and the Ancestral top, and then once the wave 50 plus, once the Ranger and Major spawn, you're going to want to start it with the Justicar bottoms and the Ancestral road top, and then immediately switch to full Justicars until you again go through all your priority steps. The safe spots are the most critical part of mastering in order to make it through all the waves. The first safe spot that I'll most likely try going to is the starting spot at the middle right tile of your starting pillar. This safe spots the melee minions that are only from above or below, but does not safe spot the melee minions from the right side. You can consider ice barraging these minions from the right side to solve this issue. It does not safe spot any minions from above that can attack with mage or range, but it does fully safe spot all the minions to the left side of the pillar, which allows you full range of motion all the way across the right side of the map as long as you are within the range of this pillar as shown on the screen. If you move outside of the range of this pillar, you can get attacked from the minions that were behind the other side, but it does allow you full range of motion in order to reach and attack minions along this range. If you cannot go to this first safe spot, the safe spot that I most find myself going to is a safe spot on the bottom right corner of the starting pillar. This is a corner safe spot which allows you full protection from mage and range, blob, and bat minions that come down the right side of the pillar and stop on the corner and are not able to attack you. It has full protection as well from all the minions on the top of the pillar, which allows you to let the melee dig to you and isolate that minion first. It's a great safe spot, but it does not protect enemies that sneak around the left side of the pillar, and it also does not protect from enemies that can range you from long range all the way on the right side of the pillar. I most recommend if you are on this spot, you're killing the melee first, or you're killing an immediate threat on the left side while maybe tanking or prayer flicking one on the right side. But generally this is a really good option. If you have a melee minion that is coming down on that right side, you're going to want to go to the safe spot on the bottom right corner of the starting pillar that is one spot below. This has full protection from melee minions since the quarter safe spot that I mentioned before does not work. The way that melee minions work is you need to be one spot back and they cannot attack you. It has all the same protections as the safe spot that I mentioned before. If you have a melee minion or another minion creeping down the left side as opposed to the right side of the pillar, which is slightly less likely but still possible, you're going to want to go to the safe spots on the left side of this pillar. They work the same way respectively. You have the corner safe spot, which is immediately on the pillar, and you have the melee safe spot, which is one step below or one square below, and they both work the same way as they do on the right side of this main pillar. The next safe spot you might want to consider is the bat safe spot. It's within blowpipe range but out of the bat's range. The only thing is it is not protected from any direction, so you generally don't want to use this safe spot unless it's just a bat that you're trying to take out while maybe prayer flicking one other minion. Other than that, I would not recommend using this safe spot. And then the last safe spot I would recommend using is the safe spot on the left side of the starting pillar. This is full protection from the right side, which is really important if you have 2 or 1 dangerous minions on the right side and you want to take out all the minions on the left side and top, because this does no protection from the left side or top. You can still safe spot the melee minion from the middle of this left side, but that is only if the melee minion is above or below you. Also for melee minions, you may want to consider switching safe spots in between the melee safe spots on the left and bottom sides, or on the middle and bottom sides, in ways that they cannot attack you. So those are the safe spots I use on the main pillar, which is the one to the north. The safe spots are the exact same for the south pillar, which is shown on the screen. I use the south pillar as a secondary pillar, and I'll run in between the two pillars whenever I have like a really bad situation that I gotta get out of. You know, I'll put on my Justicar and just truck it through there. You will frequently have to transition through these pillars, and it's good to know like these safe spots are also work on the second pillar. I generally don't use the bat safe spot on the second pillar because by then it's usually not the big threat. I usually just stand on the main number one corner safe spot and transition in between the opposite corner spot and the melee spots because generally the melees are going to dig to you because they'll also get trapped, but I would definitely recommend knowing these safe spots. Do not use the side pillar. That is absolute trash and it's just going to get you in trouble. So this is the final off-tick methods for noobs. Just bear with me here. I know I didn't say any off-ticking prayer flicking god stuff, but I break it down very simple for noobs because once you get to wave 50 and mage and rangers both spawn in, you will have to if you can't separate them by like a corner safe spot or on the opposite sides of pillars. If it's just a range and a mage minion stacked up against a pillar, it doesn't matter which one's first, the ranger is against a pillar or the mage is the closest one against a pillar. It just matters that one is the closest one against the pillar. What you're going to do is on the primary pillar, you're going to step out towards the right from the middle square closest to the pillar, and from the secondary pillar, you'll need to step out towards the left, again in the middle square closest to the pillar on your safe spot. It's important to know that this only works from north to south direction. It does not work east to west. And what you're going to do is you're going to pray against the backmost minion, then you're going to run out and attack that back one, and the second you see that the back one has attacked you, you will then immediately pray against the front one because the very next tick the front one's going to attack you. And then right as soon as you see that front one attack you or your prayer's been activated, you can run back to your safe spot. And it's pretty quick. It's an easy motion. You'll get the hang of it, and you just do this one attack at a time, take it slow. You know, you're just going to be right the first time, you know what I mean? So it doesn't matter which one's which. If it's range in the back, you got to kill the range first, and if it's the mage in the back, you got to kill the mage first. So something else is required if either the ranger or the mager is not the one closest to touching the pillar. You say, for example, if the blob is touching the pillar, you'll need a new strategy. You'll need to start from the middle of the third square back from your safe spot. You will pray from the back minion. You will step into view and immediately switch your prayer once you see that back one attack to the middle minion. And then after the middle minion attacks, you then can attack the middle and very quickly move back into cover before another enemy attack cycle repeats. This is a lot tougher, and if you don't feel comfortable doing this, you will have to just put on your Justicars, and if the blob's in the front or the bat is in the front, just put on your Justicars and SGS spec that front one, and just keep on running back and forth through cover and heal as necessary. Honestly, this is what I did, and I got the Inferno cape. Like, I just put on my Justicars and I just smacked them. But if you needed to know it, here it is, just so you have that resource. So in a situation where there's a blob, in addition to like a range and mage, even if the blob's all the way in the back, as long as you are ending on a prayer that is different than the first prayer you were praying, you will be fine, because the blob will just recognize the first prayer it sees. The only time this comes into an issue is if the blob's closest to the pillar. You'll have to switch 3 times. Say, for example, you're starting on a mage, and then you switch to your range prayer, and then the blob sees you on range. You'll then have to switch back to mage. So it'll be mage, range, mage. But this is only if you have a blob in the front, which doesn't happen that often. And always, just use your Justicar and smack it if you don't feel comfortable. Now, once you master all these skills, you will finally make it to Jad. I will release part 2 of this guide, which is just for Jad and the Zuck fight. But in the meantime, mastering all the waves, I have faith in you. Believe me. Get out there, just keep at it, and maybe if you watch this guide through a second time, you'll really come to understand the best tactic and improve your own gameplay. But in the meantime, good luck. This is it. Here we go. Let's get it, boys! Let's get it!